All right, so I guess I will really quickly. I'll explain the concept of the episode. Living Off Borrowed Time podcast. Your host, Patrique on RYM, joined for the seemingly millionth time, because I'm told that we have him on a lot, Battered Sphinx. Actually, the third time we've had him on. I don't know when this is going to air in sequence, but either somewhere in the late third, early fourth season. And the concept behind this episode is cultural exchange, and we've named this as pretentiously as possible after Sphinx's favorite record label, Anticon. It is a continental cultural exchange for the expansion of Caucasian hip-hop knowledge. And so Sphinx has a little bit of trivia for us, I guess, based on his favorite record label, Anticon, which he's trying to force me into liking. I've noticed that there's a theme going on here. First, you come onto the show to try and bully me into liking Company Flow and Early LP, and now you're trying to bully me into liking Anticon. But so I guess you do have a little bit of a trivia or a game for me relating to Anticon.
Yeah, well, I guess, first of all, we're going to clear some stuff up later about my relationship with Anticon, but let's just get this little quiz out the way. I'm not fully prepared here, so what I'm going to do is just pull out some lines, mix of some I've completely made up and some which I've actually pulled from some Anticon albums, and you try to guess which is which. All right, let's say I'll probably just go with about, let's see, probably just 3 or something. And I'll give you the answers at the end real quick. So, all right, let's see. All right, here we go. Try this one. Talking, walking in circles, slowly assembling a faux pas way of thought, but all thought is faux pas. Good point brought to the table of man or myth, imploring, bumping up, demanding the process of leaping before jumping.
You made that up.
Okay. Let's see. I won't give you the answers just yet. Next one. It's exactly one orbit later, and the pains of being unsure haunt my every waking day. The art of confidence is not one of my strongest areas, and probably never will be. Probably never will be.
I actually want to change it. The first one is Anticon. That's one you made up.
All right. Okay. And let's say the last one.
Like your little responses to things here, but continue.
Yep. Okay. Last one. I've got an entire album without excessive slang, so let's ruin that. Fat, funky, fresh, deaf, cold, chillin' in effect. It's off the meat hook, yo. This joint is funky.
You made this shit. No, I don't want to stop you. You made it.
All right, so what was it? ABC, what was it? Real quick.
First one was Anticon, the other 2 you made up.
All right, do you want to know the answer?
You made them all up.
They're all Anticon.
God, you always have some trick fucking thing at the end.
Living off borrowed time, the clock ticks faster. Living off borrowed time, the clock ticks faster. Living off borrowed time, the clock ticks faster. Living off borrowed time, the clock tick faster. Living off borrowed time, the clock tick faster. Living off borrowed time, the clock ticks faster. Living off borrowed time, the clock ticks faster. Living off borrowed time, the clock ticks faster.
Yeah, it is all Anticon.
I didn't really adequately explain the concept of the episode. I mean, hey, it's half you try to get me into Anticon, but I'm trying to get you into something. It's a cultural exchange. I'm trying to get you into Mac Miller. And the reason I picked Mac Miller is because it was somebody that I kind of had a fully formed negative opinion of, like Anticon. And I think kind of like Anticon also gets painted with like a white rapper stigma. And kind of like Anticon also tries to approach like the whole thing in a interesting sort of way. And I think they have a lot more similarities than, and I think you would kind of agree based on some things you've told me. You've been kind of elusive saying you want to save all your takes for the show, but I think you would agree that there are some certain similarities in their approaches, at least based on what because I didn't want to, we're not doing whole discographies here. Basically, you picked 2 representative releases. I picked my favorite Mac Miller release, Faces, and something I thought was representative and overlooked, which were his Larry Fisherman beat tapes, run-on sentences. And I, at the very end, threw on 3 little Lucy's he did as Larry Fisherman beats for Your Old Droog, Conway, and Michael Christmas. There's also, the other stuff he did as Larry Fisherman was a amazing collaboration with Vince Staples, Stolen Youth, but I figured that was a little too much for this episode, and we're probably going to do a Vince Staples episode down the line. And we're also going to do a Mac Miller episode down the line, too, so we'll save that for another day. But so yeah, that's the concept behind the episode. I guess since Anticon is more was the starting point for the episode, I guess we'll start off with well, I guess I should mention what Anticon albums there were, and I'll let you explain those 2. And then I'll explain my Mac Miller choices, and we can start with I guess we'll start you start with the Anticon choices. We'll decide where to start after I explain the Mac stuff.
Yep. Right. So the 2 albums I chose is one is The Taste of Rain Wine by Deep Puddle Dynamics, which is a 4-man group consisting of Slug, Alias, Soul, and Dose One. And the second album is Other Side of the Looking Glass by Alias, from that same group. So do you want me to go into it straight away, or do you want me to just give a little bit of a more explanation?
I guess a little summary of why you picked those 2 albums, and I guess, why you picked those 2 and why you think they represent Anticon, and why you thought that I should specifically would enjoy them, or why you would discuss them here.
Right. So I guess, honestly, the first obvious choice that I was going to originally go with is Cloud Dead, which is considered the crowning achievement of Anticon, but you have supposedly already heard that, and I think you gave it like a 1.5 out of 5 or something.
The other concept behind this was that we supposed to have not heard the records beforehand. So it's supposed to be like a fresh listen, and I hadn't really listened to. I gave 2 listens to each of these, a little over 2 to the Deep Puddle Dynamics on certain tracks, but there were time constraints. So I don't know how much you listened to the Mac stuff, but the thing was, it wasn't supposed to be like not necessarily in-depth listens for the stuff that we're hearing for the counter argument, I guess. So I just to re-explain the concept. But anyway, go ahead.
Yep. So with the Mac Miller stuff, I've listened to at least twice with everything, including the singles, and with the album, it is quite long. But I sort of listened fully twice, and then a few other times select tracks are pretty similar to you. But yeah, I guess the reason why I chose these 2 albums, other than Cloud Dead self-titled, is these 2 are probably up there with my favorites as far as Anticon go. And I just want to explain real quick. I'm often the butt of the joke when it comes to Anticon, but to be completely honest, the only reason I'm the Anticon guy is just pure relativity. Like, it's just because everyone else hates them and I like them, and that's about it. I'm not completely in love. I haven't, contrary to popular belief, I've listened to a bit, not quite a lot. But compared to everyone else, yeah, I guess I am the die-hard fan, expert, nerdy backpacker asshole in the group because I happen to enjoy them and not completely hate them. But these 2 albums, I feel, Deep Puddle Dynamics, you get a decent taste of Anticon, specifically the group members. And the Other Side of the Looking Glass, I thought I would choose that. I sort of tacked it on a bit later on, but I felt that is much more. First of all, it's a super underrated album. Second of all, I think it's way more down to earth, and way more emotional than what is sort of stereotypically associated with Anticon, being hoity-toity, pretentious, XYZ. So I figured it would be a decent contrast between the 2 to get your opinion. And like you hinted at earlier, I did find some similarities that we'll discuss later with The Other Side of the Looking Glass in particular, and Faces, interestingly enough. and both Alias and Mac Miller's lives. There's a few parallels there.
All right. I think that was a pretty good summary. I picked the Mac stuff because I think Faces is his best album. Mixtape, whatever. It was something that took me a little while to come around on. I think it's the most representative of all of his styles, his artistic evolution, and it says a lot about his life. A lot has been said about like his the commentary it makes on his like substance issues and how it predicts how he would eventually die. And like there's a really, really gross and sad Twitter account called Hip Hop by the Numbers. I think we talked about this in the chat.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
And I think it has a breakdown about how Faces has like, 65% like substance abuse lines and 25% depression lines, and it has like pie chart and all this shit. And yeah, and I also just thought that you would like really enjoy the production on Faces. I think it's his by far most interestingly produced album. I don't know if it's his best produced album, but I think it's the one production wise you would enjoy the most, because I think Swimming in Circles production not really your thing. And speaking of production, because we kind of decided originally this was just going to be Faces versus Deep Puddle, correct? And then you decided to throw Alias on at the end, so I decided to throw on the Larry Fisherman stuff, which I think not nearly enough people have heard. It's his producer Alias, and these are just tapes that he kind of put out under the radar for free that mostly are like got exposure through YouTube. I don't even know if there were like proper. I think whatever floats around is just YouTube rips, but I think they're really, really cool and show off different sides of his sound and experimental tendencies that you hear on Faces, and kind of actually have a lot of similarities production-wise with some of the stuff I heard on the Anticon production too. So
interesting.
A little,
right?
Yeah. Like I would say, I don't know. Like I had a lot more. I mean, I'll spoil a little bit. I had a lot more appreciation for the Anticon production on this than I did from what I heard on Cloud Dead. Although I feel like I've said this, that I feel like if I listened to Cloud Dead again, I heard that a long time ago. I feel like I would appreciate it more, at least on a production level. Although I don't know about. We'll see. But so I guess the best way to approach this would be to start with. So you said Deep Puddle, like I guess with Deep Puddle, because Deep Puddle you said is kind of like a good little sampler of Anticon, and I think that's a good way to put it, because I think you get a lot of stylistically what Anticon has to offer on this album. And all right, so
yeah,
this first track, I listened to it and I liked it. At first, I'm like, this is refreshing, because the way it's structured, I didn't have a chance to get sick of any one MC's flow. And one of my problems with this style of rapping is that it can just get like it's beating you over the head with one person doing it. When you have four people doing it and they're passing it off, you never have a chance to get sick of it. You never have a chance to feel like you're just really being assaulted in a bad way by rapping, by like a tedious style of rapping. But the way the track is structured, it still feels like you're being assaulted, because it goes on for 5 fucking minutes and the loop goes nowhere. And then the ending is terrible. I fucking hate the end of this song so much. Like, okay, so yeah. But then the second track is really good. I don't know, like, do you is the intro like your favorite song ever and really offending you or something? Or is it considered like the best song on the album? Because I think the intro was a really bad, obnoxious way to start this album. And I could understand just not giving them a shot after listening to that fucking intro. Because especially the ending to the intro, because it just drags on, and there are hot lines throughout it. I think that like I think everybody is good on it. Like I really enjoy Slug. I really enjoy Alias on that. But I think everybody's delivery is distinctive. I don't think the beat is very good. I think it's the least interesting beat on the album by far. And I think the ending is absolutely obnoxious. In my the review that I haven't written yet, although I think I mentioned it in the log, I compare the ending to, you're not familiar with this, but the band Fish has a signature song called You Enjoy Myself, which ends in a vocal jam, which is 4 white guys doing obnoxious shit with their voices, a la Mike Patton. And this is like that level of obnoxious and bad. I can't fucking stand it.
Yeah, it's fun. I saw your comment saying that in your log, and I looked it up, and I was like, oh god, you're kind of right. You're kind of right. I was like, I wasn't sure, because I know you like Fish, but I was like, this is the first time I've heard Fish. I've heard of them, but this is my introduction to Fish, and this is the corniest thing ever.
I mean, that was a bad introduction. What I mentioned there is like probably one of the worst things about Fish.
Yeah.
But,
Yep. But this first track is not one of my favorites. It's probably one of my lesser favorites. Still like it. Just up front, I like every song on this album. I love some songs. I don't dislike any songs, but this is probably the worst beat. It is a bit like trotting and slow and sort of menacing, but not enough. But the thing with a couple things about this album and around this sort of era of hip hop is this is sort of when hip hop was, being deep pushed into the underground, which is something that we mentioned in the Complete Flow Cannibal Ox episode. So it's around the same time. This was, that was 97. This is 98, 99. So more and more things were being pushed to the underground, and it was almost sort of like a challenge in who can be the most obtuse and who can be the most different from what's happening in the mainstream. So the thing with these guys, though, is that you got four rappers, and they pretty much, you can sort of line them up in terms of most traditional to least traditional, with Slug being the most traditional one. He's quite often fairly on beat. His syllables usually fit within the bars pretty neatly within the stanzas, and he's the most straightforward with his wordplay, and while still maintaining an abstract edge. But you still do get also the most like classic hip hop references. Like he makes references to Mobb Deep and Rakim and KRS and stuff like that. Ice Cube, I think. And then you get probably Soul or Alias are sort of in the middle, where they got that sort of run-on sentence flow, that term paper rap flow that you call it. But they still...
I just want to stop you right there. I stole that term from noted internet personality, friend of mine from back in the day. I don't know if I still... I haven't really kept up with him. Raven Mack came up with that. And so I can't claim that term. That stuck with me, though, is because it just seems like... I think he put it as, it just seemed like he's like... I think it came from backpackers. Like, what are you carrying around in your backpack? Like term paper. And I always think of, I think I mentioned this on the show before. I don't know if the video is still on YouTube. It's when Cannabis battle raps somebody, and he gets and he pulls out like the sheets of like old school printer paper that has he just wants to spit his bars.
Legendary moment in hip hop embarrassment. But yeah, so I guess I like that term. But you get Soul and Alias, who are sort of in the middle. Alias being the more emotional one, and Soul having a little bit of a political edge, and he's a bit like the angrier one. And then you have Dose One, who, the main reason I chose, the main reason I chose this album is because you get a sample of all four, and I feel like this, if you really want to dive into Anticon, this is a way better introduction than something like Cloudhead or hip hop for the investment, because you get a taste of the four, then you can explore each of these guys' individual careers. Like a traditionalist can love atmosphere and soul, and then someone more into like emo rap-ish sort of stuff can love Alias, and then someone who wants something completely abstract, completely like borderline nonsensical can listen to Dose One. Like, yeah, and a big part of getting over this album is honestly Dose One. I do like him, but I rarely understand what he says, and his voice can be super awesome, or insanely grating at times. But yeah, with this first track, it's a bad introduction. It's way too long. The beat is okay. And it took me a while to like this album, honestly, because of the first two tracks. They're not my two favorite beats, but I still like the songs. But then the beats after that is great. But what I like about the first track, though, is the imagery. There is like so many references to water and drowning and falling and rain, descending, sinking, spiraling, whirlpools, submerged, puddles, ripples, H2O, flotation devices. It's just sort of scattered all the way. So it sort of really does put into the theme. I guess it's sort of like a metaphor about like suffering or like underground, like exploring underground hip hop. But the other thing I like about this album overall, and what's introduced right from the beginning track, is there is a bit of a traditionalist vibe of a hip hop crew or a rap group that is exchanging bars. Like rarely, I'd say less than half of these songs is one verse by this guy, or 116 by this guy, next 16 by this guy, a hook, next 16 by the next guy, next 16 by the next guy. Like they vary it up heaps, which is the best thing in an album with multiple rappers. Like it gets kind of stale in other albums, like on a Slaughterhouse, where it's just like you got these 4 lyrically great rappers, but they just come on the track. First guy, go. Okay. Second guy, go. Okay. Third guy, go. Without a real concept, and they sort of just call it a day, where they almost sort of cancel each other out. But I feel like with these guys, the contrasting styles and the fact that like they get like maybe like 2 bars, next guy 2 bars, next guy 2 bars, and then do it like a hook where it's like 2 guys at the same times, or one guy and then the next, and then the second hook is like third guy and fourth guy. Like that yeah, the song structure is really really creative. Just the way they trade verses.
I agree. I think the structure is the best thing. One of the best things about this. I think the production is really cool. I think there's a lot of variety of the production. I think there are a few things that bother me about this. Actually, Dose One is not my least favorite MC on here. My least favorite MC on here is Soul. My least favorite verse on here is, or The Scarecrow Speaks, I think is a goddamn boring lecture. Why are you beating me over the head with this like fucking respectability politics ass rap? Like what the fuck? Like that. And Where the Wild Thing. Okay, there are 3 songs that I could. If you lose them, I think this is like when I listened to it the second time. When I listened to it the first time, the only thing that really bothered me was the intro. When I listened to it the second time, I was bothered by 3 songs. The intro still plods. The intro was even more annoying the first time. Where the Wild Things Are, I think, is really corny. I thought that they just overplay the concept on that, and The Scarecrow Speaks is just like a goddamn plot, like lecture that I do not need. And my other issue is that almost all the songs are too long, and I think I'm spoiled. Like, this is a podcast where we spent 30 minutes gushing about a whole lot of Red by Playboy Cardi. I don't have the attention span for 6-minute Anticon songs lecturing me to read a book. So, but I really do enjoy, like, I think I enjoy Dose One style maybe more than you do. I don't know, because it seems like you're pretty negative on Dose One, whereas I thought that he was, like, maybe it's because I had such negative memories of Cloud Dead, I was expecting to hate him more, but I actually did not really mind him as much. I don't know.
No, don't get me wrong. I do like Dose One. I guess I meant just for like a person first getting into any sort of Anticon album, or this in particular. That is the person who's going to make it or break it for people. I do like him on here.
No,
but it's funny.
I agree, though. Like, if I wasn't conditioned to it and expecting, I was almost bracing myself for him. Maybe that's why I was surprised. It's weird that I think that Slug and Alias, because I'm kind of conditioned to, I mean, emo rap means a different thing now. Emo rap means Lil Peep. Emo rap means Machine Gun Kelly doing Avril Lavigne covers or whatever the fuck it is he does. But emo rap then meant like Slug and Alias and Page and that sort of shit.
Yeah, exactly.
And I normally was pretty averse to that. Like, I remember I actually bought the Cage album because the guy from Glassjaw was on it. I think I can blame Ryan for that. Ryan was like, oh, you'll like, yeah, Ryan was making rap recommendations to me 15 years ago.
Is this pre or post N-word Cage? Because I know in his earlier stuff,
I think it was post, because I think he addresses it. Is it Hell's Winter?
Hell's Winter, right? Yeah.
Pretty sure it was.
I thought you were thinking of Depart From Me or whatever. But Hell's Winter.
Sure it's Hell's Winter. But yeah. So that's normally a style of rap that I did not at the time really like. I've tried so like. You know, much like Chester Bennington from Linkin Park, I tried so hard and got so far, but in the end, it didn't really matter. I didn't really care for a lot of that style. I've listened to Slug, Sage, and Aesop were the 3 that we talked about this in the Canox episode a little bit that I just tried to break into, and L. And gradually, L and Aesop won me over. Slug and Sage, not so much. Although Slug, I think I enjoy more than Sage, because Sage, I still couldn't really point to a project of his that I really like.
Right. I pretty much like all those guys, at least a project from them. But yeah, as if it's not obvious, this sort of style of rap where it's super verbose is one of my favorite styles. I just enjoy the sound of it first and foremost, and the just like the way I don't know how to explain it properly, but just like the more. I know it's sort of like an easy thing to sort of say, oh, well, they're just saying more stuff or whatever they're trying to cram in as more as possible. It's pretentious X, Y, Z. But I just feel like it gives like an interesting sound to the rapping, which I just tend to gravitate towards. But yeah, just it's funny you should say, well, the Wild Things Are is probably one of my favorite tracks. And with the Scarecrow Speaks, I really like that track, but I want to address something related to this track and Anticon in general. What level of self-awareness of their own sort of pretentiousness do you think this album, but also Anticon having in general? Because I know there is a whole, music for the advancement of hip-hop thing, but
do you think that the Scarecrow Speaks is intended with a level of self-awareness, or do you think it's intended entirely sincerely? Because you constantly mention about how the place of underground hip-hop at this point, and we've mentioned how it's all like not reactionary, but a reaction. And so this is kind of like, it felt sincere to me. Like, it feels pretty sincere. I think they're not entirely unaware. I think that there's also a level of not caring because you're smart and you're competent enough in your intelligence, I suppose.
So the interesting thing, I kind of been tossing it up. I'm leaning more towards the self-awareness in total, but not in all cases. But I was listening to a Yone Wolf podcast with Soul, and he was talking about how he regrets naming their first compilation music for the advancement of hip-hop, because he said, looking back at it, the racial connotations of it and the optics of it, he would no way he would have done that. But I still do think, even in this album, there is sort of, I picked up like a bunch of lines here and there where there is sort of a self-awareness. Like with the Scarecrow Speaks, it is a little bit comedic where they have like the people in the background sort of like cheering on, and if you listen to what they're saying, like that, it's kind of farcical. And then, Saul does say something like exercise intellect. If you're lacking, pretend. And then Slug says, condescending the leg dove into, when you finally acknowledge that I'm not pretending. Follow the language, the direction, the dialect, the cadence, the enunciation, emphasis, pretentiousness. So every now and then they sort of scatter it, but I'm not quite sure if that's just sort of a way of like, oh, well, I mentioned it, so you can't call me out on it, Yeah,
I think that's what it is. It's a deflection like that. And you mentioning that makes me think about the whole great, Def Jux versus Anticon debate and L's place in this discussion, and makes me appreciate more. You keep making me appreciate early LP more and more. Is like that L did, like, I was always shitting on L's sense of humor. Like, I used to say L didn't really have a sense of humor. I was fucking wrong. I'll, walk that one completely back, because L has so much more of a sense of humor than these guys. Like, that was another thing I was struck by versus the Mac Miller stuff, is that, like, I think Mac has a lot of the same sort of approach in the way he approaches words and just saying shit for the sake of saying shit. Like, Mac is saying, like, kind of has different reference points, but I think that they are both using words just because words sound cool. Like, and I think, but my point though is that L was like the Company Flow album has so much more. He and Just had so many more jokes than this, and that's why that album was a lot more of a fun listen for me. Even though it's two guys instead of four, I think that it felt like it felt less exhausting. Even though it was longer and heavier than this.
Yeah,
I would say.
Well, I guess so. With it's funny because LP had a beef with Soul back in the day. Yeah. They went back and forth, and even Alaska mentioned how much he hated Anticon, even though they did a song together and they sort of hang around the same circles, but there was beef around that too. But yeah, even Alaska, who admitted that back in the day everyone was super serious except for someone like MF Doom, like in the underground. But even he admitted that like the Anticon dudes were like the most serious. So by all means, it seems like they were kind of douchey, self-important people. But honestly, it doesn't bother me because I still feel like this album in particular, and some of their others, a few of their others, I still think it's really enjoyable to me personally. Like a lot of these songs, it is sort of a exercise in creative writing, but not as corny as that sounds. You know, like you got the first track where it has all the imagery and all the wordplay with sinking and, you know, falling and submerging and puddles and all that sort of stuff. Then second track is like each rapper is rapping from the perspective of a different part of a candle. And then you got thought versus action, where it's like, you know, the first two guys, Soul and Alias, are sort of Slug and Dose One are sort of rapping about the idea of thought, and their verses are more abstract. And then Soul and Alias are sort of rapping about action, and their more verses are more direct. So it's like the concept is realized fully in the delivery of, you know, not just the vocal delivery, but also like the writing.
Right. I like that you're explaining these, because I feel like the way you explain the concepts does flesh out the strengths and the weaknesses, in that it is like, what I like about it is that they kind of take the whole idea of battle rapping, where it's just you're trying to one up each other, or like improv comedy, yes, and like keep going sort of thing. But instead of just dissing or bragging, you're doing it with creative concepts. Like on the first track, it's about like taking that rain water concept about, like, first of all, you start with the pun, like, you know, a deep puddle. It's just a dumb pun, right? And then depth, the underground. And then how far can you go with that? And then just keep going and going and going for 7 minutes. But it gets tiresome to me on that song, because they don't do, like, they're just not as, I guess there's not as, I don't think it's as clever as you, because I focus more on the lyrics and the sound of the lyrics, I guess, or I don't find the sound of their voices together, like that particular track. It's just basically, I guess, when the construction of the track works, I can tune out or the writing. Like, either the track has to be constructed well, or the writing has to be clever enough. In some cases, I don't think either of those things are the case. Just enough on this one and a few. The three that I mentioned, where the wild things are, I think the beat is the one beat I want to hear I would call outright corny. And
that's one of my favorite ones.
Yeah, no, I know. But,
yeah.
And we've talked about the Scarecrow Speaks. Other than that, I think that the little suite at the end, the June 26th suite, I think works really well. I think that it really lends itself to Slug's storytelling, which I think there's a good balance on here between Slug. Like, Slug is known for storytelling, but he also has good there's a good balance on here of his two styles. And again, I'm not like a big atmosphere expert, unlike Makami, who I am an expert on. I haven't heard a whole lot of, so I don't really have a whole lot of comparison reference points for it. But this is up there, I would say, with Overcast. Is that what it's called?
Yep.
Yeah, that one. Overcast. And the second Felt album, I think, are the two best atmosphere albums, Slug performances I've heard. And I'd say this is up there with that. I have no real other reference points except for the Alias album you showed me that we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yep.
I guess we'll talk about that next. Yeah. So
yeah.
And I like that one, by the way. It's weird because in thinking about it, I have this at a 7 and I have that at a 6. I almost want to flip them, because I do feel like the rapping overall on the Alias album, the more on the second listen, left more of an impression than the rapping on this album left on me, because the Alias album, I think you were right, is definitely atypical for Anticon. I don't think he's rapping for the sake of shit just sounding cool, or just fleshing out a concept as sort of an exercise. And I think that he's actually applying those sort of skills to something more resonant, which I'm surprised that you, Mr. I don't really care about.
Yeah, I guess the thing, it's interesting. I have sort of agree with you and sort of disagree with you. I guess we're sort of moving on to the other side of the looking glass.
We can. Alias. I don't know if you have anything else to say about the. I did want to mention one thing as a comparison for this album in terms of a modern thing where it's like a sort of quote unquote pretentious album with a bunch of smart rappers. It's called Secret Museum of Mankind. Have you heard of this?
Secret
of Mankind. 2017. It's Kool A.D, two people I've never heard of, Tone Tank, DBS, and there are a few others on like some posse tracks. And each track is like 9 minutes long. They're like, I believe they're Kool A.D beats, maybe cool beats, I don't know. And it's like, yeah, I mean, if you're familiar with solo Kool A.D, what you might be, because I know you're always telling me to listen to fucking Das Racist.
I've not listened to solo Kool A.D, but I love Das Racist, yeah.
It's weird, because I actually like some solo Kool A.D a lot, even though he's a piece of shit person. And
but you won't listen to Das Racist because he's a piece of shit person.
No, I've listened to Das Racist. I've listened to both their Das Racist albums, and I like a few individual songs. I find the overall approach to be really annoying over the course of a whole album. Mm-hmm. I think that their verse on the Last Is All remix is one of my favorite songs ever, and their verse on it is fucking hysterical, and that kind of almost justifies their whole existence to me, and is what motivated me to give them chances solo. I think Heems has a few cool feature verses too. Kool has a lot of really good stuff on his solo career, but he also has a lot of complete garbage. I think the fact that he gets people to pay $100 for him to do like whack ass freestyles where he says nothing is like, I don't know if it's brilliant or just like really obnoxious.
I wasn't aware of any of that, but
oh yeah,
I would
whenever
say
he has this $100 freestyle on those like tracks, like albums where he like has 100 mixtapes where he has 100 tracks on it, like Lil B. Yeah, that means that somebody paid him $100 and he just did a quote unquote like a based freestyle where he like just literally off the top of his head says nothing.
Right. No,
so
that's why
it's a nice grift that he has going there with those.
That's why
he gets away with that anymore. But
no. I'm not a big fan of especially like super prolific artists like that. I'm like, okay, how much of this is actually you putting all your effort into it, and how much is goofing off? Because I don't like half-hearted stuff like that.
Somebody put in one of the Kool A.D comment boxes, only Kool A.D could release 300 track mixtapes in 1 year and still seem lazy.
Yeah. No, I'm good. I'm straight. I'm super straight. Yeah. But I will say
there are some shorter projects of his that are actually pretty good. I can't remember them off the top of my head. I will try and remember them and send them to you in Discord. He has 3 or 4 that I mean, don't give him any of your money, obviously. But
no, I would say if you like the Last Is Out verse, give a re-listen to at least.
I also like the one with Danny Brown, Power, I think it's called. That's a good song. Right. And there are a handful of Das Racist songs that I think are all right. But overall, both albums. I think the second album better than the first one, I believe.
The second mixtape, Sit Down Man. Yeah, that one is slowly becoming one of my favorite things ever. I would say maybe give it another shot. Approach it with maybe like a super silly MF Doom Quasimodo sort of internet generation kind of thing.
I mean, no, I'm not approaching it looking for like super serious fucking like intellectual bars, change my life shit. But I mean, I used to find it really obnoxious and gimmicky, like Diane Toward type stuff. But then I came around more on it. I came around more on it. Like again, I could never hate them entirely as artists after the Last Is All verse, because everything about that verse is like drunk driving on a Wednesday. My friends be rapping.
These guys
be writing.
These guys love.
Like what happened?
These guys love Dipset. Like these guys love Dipset so much, especially Cameron. Like if you like the silly off the top Cameron stuff says, I would say check it out. But anyway, that's a massive digression. But just a quick last thoughts, deep bottle before we move on. I think everything is like fully for me. The concepts are fully realized into like actual songs that they fleshed out. Sure, it could use some trimming here and there. Maybe some remixes or kick up the bass maybe or additional samples or something, but I still think the production overall is great. And I do love like you said, the 1999 or whatever, the track A, B, C, and the Slight, Exist, Purpose, and Mothers of Invention. They are surprisingly like if someone thinks the rest of the album sort of pretentious, I'd say these ones are way more sort of open-hearted, and they're talking about self-doubt and self-reflecting on like their art and like if it's worth even doing. Then they're talking about like like having nightmares and things like that, and I would say that people should check those out if they're sick of like the other quote unquote pretentious tracks.
Yeah,
but
I would just say that if it starts with, I don't know. I mean, I guess you need to start with something, and I don't know if the Candle's the right way to start because the Candle isn't really like a, forgive hot intro because it's like laid back, jazzy. It's a very good song, but it's like the tempo of it isn't really right to kick off your album. But then again, the intro tempo isn't really right to kick off your album too. But at least it's more of like I get what it's going for. So I don't know like what you use to start it off, but I'm saying if you lose the intro, if you lose where the wild things are, and you lose where the Scarecrow speaks, I feel like it doesn't feel nearly as pretentious, or at least it doesn't seem like as nearly as satisfied with itself. It feels a lot more human, I guess, because that's why I think listening to the Mac album in the midst of all this made me think about like that's a big complaint I would have about Anticon. I think that a lot of people have about Anticon is that it doesn't feel like it has humanity to it. It feels very removed, intellectualized, like, oh, these guys are deconstructing rap. Like, I think that's why Soul had that, regret about naming the album that, or because it felt like they, aside from, the problematic racial dynamic of it, it's also like removed from the street level emotion of rapping. Like they're intellectualizing it so much. They're advancing it. Like, what the fuck? Like, get out of the fucking classroom. Like,
yeah, so that's where I gotta disagree because I really think that people gotta really look at these. Like if you look at the you're talking about the human angle,
but I'm saying no. I think I'm not. But my argument is that if you get rid of those tracks, what you have left is the June 26th suite, which is humanizing. What you have is like, and that acts in contrast to the first half. It's like an A side and a B side. The A side is the thought-provoking side. The B side is the humane side, starting with Heavy Ceiling.
Really yeah, sorta.
Yeah.
Sorta, yeah, because Heavy Ceiling.
Kind of argue that. So, but I feel like if you have those other tracks, which are just like every bad cliche about Anticon. I would disagree with what Diction says, where Diction in his review says that this is very dated, abstract production. I don't think it's dated. I think the production's really cool and varied. Like there's one, like I don't like the Where the Wild Things Are beat. Other than that, I think the production is at worst kind of backgroundy in some places, but like I think it's varied. I think it's got like it's more jazzy than I remember it being. I remember it being, again, I'm probably remembering Cloud Dead here, but I think I would say that sometimes you could say that the only complaint I would have about it is that it's busy for the sake of being busy. There are changes for the sake of there being changes, but I don't think that's a really like negative thing in a way. It's a style.
Right. Yeah. I do. I wouldn't call them busy. I'd actually call them not straightforward, but it was that interesting time of like it's sort of abstract hip hop before experimental hip hop, where the lyrics and the concepts and everything was sort of trying to be quote unquote boundary pushing, but the sound not necessarily wasn't. And it is probably because of the technology around the time, the sampling technology, the drum machine technology. So it wasn't until later in the 2000s when you had like LP's Fantastic Damage and Dialect and all those guys, a bit later in the 2000s when technology got better, where they started really going ham. Because this is production wise, this is still steeped in boom bap. Like it's just really lo-fi underground boom bap. Like it's not, apart from some of the more like ominous and strange and interesting samples and vocals and guitars, and it's not too different from like a Duck Down Records or like a Fondulum Records. Maybe some of the darker like MF Doom, MF Grimm, those kind of guys. Maybe sort of Black Moonish, like the general underground. It had this sort of overall sort of darkness and a bit more of like a lo-fi sort of sound. Partly because of choice, but partly because of the limitations to technology and the access to technology at the time. But yeah, no, I think that there is like some nice like jazzy double bass samples of some tracks. There's like haunting vocals, and I would say like it's just varied. It's minimal enough for you to to not be crammed in with the rapping, but it is still like it's a nice variety, yeah. And some of these beats, like if you put someone else, if you put like a traditional rapper of some of these beats, like people will just eat this up. Like it's not that much, it's not that far off. Like
No,
it's a little
it's not
bit of
Cloud Dead for sure. Like
no,
that's yeah. I mean,
it's a bit bit of a
like,
blockhead.
Yeah, I would say that Well, I got more Blockhead vibes off of the Alias album actually, because it's funny you mentioned Blockhead, because I felt like I really felt like stuff he did for Aesop and to a lesser extent Billy Woods. I felt that on some of the stuff, more traditional stuff on the Alias album, I would say, because there's stuff on the Alias album that's non-traditional for sure.
Yeah, which you want to go into that, or do you
let's go into that one because I want to talk about that a lot. Because all right, instrumentally, this blew me away. This is like, I was not expecting this to sound as good as it did. I love the variety of drums on this. I think that it covers a ton of genres. Like there was drum and bass on here. There's a lot of dub on here.
Yes, there is. And also like Faces, well, sort of like Faces. This is fully produced by Alias, so he's doing all the rapping and all the production. And I think he maybe has like one saxophonist on one track where there's a sax solo, and then, but yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if he plays instruments because it sounds both super electronic, but also really dynamic and really it seems like there's live instrumentation. Like there's a lot of variety in the beats. Like a lot of it sounds like like dub and like ambient and like IDM production and drum and bass.
Of like, I got sort of like mid-late 90s Ilbient's a good term for it, but
like DJ Spooky,
some of the higher temp DJ Spooky, like Dead Dreamer era DJ Spooky, some sort of the higher tempo stuff felt like drum and bass. I don't even know what to call it. There's very little other rap analog, I think, for something like Pill Hiding. The last third of this is really like and also in terms of exploring depression, there are very few other. I mean, on my first listen, I felt like I was listening to it at work, which is not the best atmosphere to listen to something like this, I think, and that could probably account for my initial low rating. I'm moving it up to a 7. It was a 6 at first. I'm moving it up to a 7. It might even go to an 8 with time, because my first listen was listening to it at work. I had constant interruptions. I don't think you should listen to this with interruptions.
Yeah, and it's a very mood album. It's a very specific mood, yeah.
Especially, I got really annoyed in the final third when I was being interrupted, because I think the final third is extremely well structured. But my point was, in terms of exploring depression in a non-superficial sort of way, I can think of very few other rap albums that go this in depth with it. Like there's Earl stuff, but there's also Haslow's. If you haven't heard this, In Case I Made It Back, that's
on my list.
You gotta listen to that shit. That's very much like, that's probably the closest I can think of just really getting into like this sort of mood. The sound of it's very different than this. I also, in terms of rapping, he does sound a little like L to me, but he's content-wise very different. Like it's like almost a flipped ratio of like, he'll brag very occasionally and mostly talk about depressing shit, whereas L's bragging most of the time and throws in some depressing shit for context.
It is. I can't think of too many. Other than something like Faces, of course.
Faces. Like Solace isn't really a rap album. Like Earl's always got depressive themes. Some rap songs. You have that.
All the I guess thinking.
Stuff, Mike stuff, the Slum stuff. That's a whole like Earlcore. Earlcore is almost like a depression rap subgenre at this point. I can see Jerome rolling his eyes if he's listening to this. But
well, I guess I'm thinking like around the time, because this is 2002.
Around the time, nothing. Yeah, like around the time, like you had, like I mean, Cold Vein dealt with it in some sense, but directly dealing with it over the course of a whole album the way this does, there was nothing really. I mean, Zero did, but that was a completely different sort of rap from a completely different region, and I'm sure you haven't heard it, but.
Wait, Zero
from Houston. Zero, Z-Row.
Oh, that's Zero, not Zeroh.
Oh, well, I've heard he's done depression shit too, but that was way later. And Zero, the Houston rapper.
I've been meaning to check him out because the album title really sort of struck me. I was like, oh, that's a look what you did to me. I was like, oh, that's an interesting title, given like where the dude's from and the sort of era of the music. So I've been meaning to check that out. But yeah, other than I'm trying to think like around the time, other than like some of his contemporaries, I don't think there was like another album around the time that was exploring sadness, depression. Like I'm pretty sure bipolar, it sort of mentions of that. Pills and a lot of mentions of death, talking about his wife, talking about his mom, and I can't think of any sort of other stuff around the time that was.
I will say though, the weakness of it, and it still felt like a weakness on the second listen, much less so though. And again, that's why I think it was going to grow for me with time. Is that this? I don't think he varies his flow enough for the subject matter. Which is coming from me because I love some rap songs and, Diction's out there saying it's zombie rap, zombie hop, whatever, that it's like so monotone. But I feel like if you're getting Alias coming like hard flow the whole time, it gets a little like I think you need the variance and flow a little bit for things to connect more. Otherwise, stuff gets lost.
Yeah, I'll say for me, the flow is. It's not necessarily samey because I don't have an issue with that because it's not like I don't know, like someone where it's just like like Amigos or something where it's just triplet flow the entire album or something. It's because it is sort of that offbeat, spoken-ish, wordish rap, so it isn't like one style that he sticks to, but it is a style in a way. For me, I would say. Deep diving into the lyrics, I like the content. I like what he's talking about. I don't think it's always necessarily delivered in a super interesting way. There is like a few tracks where he takes a concept and runs with it, like an extended sort of concept and metaphor, and I love that. But generally, like in terms of clever wordplay or sort of just wit or something like that, it's a little bit missing, but maybe this is not the time or place for it.
I actually have a question, and I guess this kind of goes back to the Canox episode. Did he write this pre or post 9/11? Because Jovial Costume, the very first line on that, Grace of Falling Towers. Like, I mean, that's obviously more about like himself because it's all about the facade he puts up for the world. I love that song, by the way. That's a really, really good song.
That's one of my favorite songs of all time. That's one of my favorite verses. I relate
to that song really, really hard. I think that's like that right there disproved a lot of my misconceptions about Anticon. That song, like that's him like fleshing out. Like that's not like a lyrical exercise for the sake of a lyrical exercise. That's him taking that whole like he's not fucking up thesaurus in that song. He's using like verbal conceptual rap to say something about his own condition and the whole, universal condition. Everybody does a little bit of something that he talks about in that song.
That is one of my favorite verses of all time. Easily one of my favorite songs of all time. But yeah, like it's almost like an introvert anthem in a way. The beat, incredible. Like these woodwinds, like it's crazy. Mysterious woodwinds, and then like the saxophone comes in and the drums, like the skittering drum and bass sort of drums. But yeah, like concentrate on this wave of sound with the grace of falling towers of a power each percussion hit with a split of personality. I'm growing accustomed to feeling down in the dumps and my tongue is sore and filled with teeth marks. And then like at the end he says, I ride the uncertainty lane, constantly biting my nails and glancing at the planes that keep passing over, longing to be on the inside, splitting aside with the guy 3 seats ahead of me. I didn't say hello. Has socially dead of me. How are you? Insert small talk here. Like, yeah, that is exactly what you said. Where it's like using the flow, using the words, syllables, all that sort of stuff to like very, very direct in a way. But yeah, using like at the absolute most of it all and putting it together. And yeah, it's super grounded, like and super relatable. Even though like it is really sort of downtrodden, but yeah, like you said, it's really, really relatable. But it does continue pretty much everywhere else. But maybe it's because I've listened to that song a bazillion times that the rest of the tracks lyrically don't necessarily stand out to me as much, except for a few. But
I mean, that's the peak of the album for me lyrically, for sure. Otherwise, some stuff runs together for me. But I do think that after the Dose one, I think the final third of the album is it's pretty good, and then it gets great at Black Tea to the end. I think that is really, really solid. And I think part of it was, I was about to say that part of it was I didn't really get to focus on it until that point when I first listened to it, but that's not true. I kept getting interrupted the whole time, and I got more annoyed when I was interrupted during the last part because I was way more into it. I felt like it becomes, this feels more cohesive than Deep Puddle to me. I mean, partially because, it's a solo project versus a group project, but also just in terms of album sequencing, it's the same thing as Deep Puddle in that it's a bunch of creative writing exercises, but they feel just better written. And the instrumentals, I had a few notes on the instrumentals. Let me see if I can bring them up here.
I think this one, just real quick while finding notes, I wouldn't call these an exercise writing. They definitely peaked Deep Puddle. They had some themes that are similar with this album. There is tracks about self-doubt and tracks about reflecting on your an art form and if it's even worth pursuing and things like that. There's some of those similar themes.
I mean, I wasn't trying to say creative writing exercises in a negative sense, more that it was just both, that they were both collections of tracks based around themes.
Yeah.
Structurally that way. That's what I meant. Not a diss on that. I use that term negatively, but I didn't mean it in that sense. My notes just real quick, I only had a few. Were Getting By version 2 has probably my favorite drums on it because there are a bunch of different kinds of drums on it.
Oh, the beat switch and the drill and bass sort of interlude, and
and then it goes into really relaxed drums on the following track. That's a really cool transition. Arrival is probably the jazziest Anticon track I've heard.
Oh yeah, it's got the woodwind flutes and stuff. Yeah. And
it feels sort of something that Madlib would do, Yesterday's New Quintet almost. But this is an actual rap context. It's not even a jazz side project context. So that's really, and also this was probably this was right around when he started Yesterday's New Quintet, and the original Yesterday's New Quintet stuff Stevie was very basic. So this is more advanced than Madlib doing this sort of shit. So that was kind of impressive to me.
Which is crazy to me because the guy is an incredible producer. As far as this album is concerned, the guy's an incredible producer, but he's still writing a lot of stuff, and he's not a sloucher on the mic in terms of delivery, and definitely not in terms of writing. But it's crazy to me. He's just really, really good at both. On his first debut album, which is insane.
Just the other two notes I had were Watching Water. I think it could be gimmicky that the piano mimics rippling pond, ripples on a pond or water rushing. But I love that. They pulls off the concept perfectly. And Opus Ashamed makes me want to revisit Cloud Dead because the way that it has so many different rhythmic textures in it, that feels oh, is this what Cloud Dead sounded like? Or is this just because it's the Dose 1 feature. So obviously he's going to do something that Dose 1 feels comfortable with. It sounds nothing like anything on Deep Puddle. And it kind of made me think that maybe I should revisit the Cloud. I don't know. Half this podcast is me listening to shit that I shit on old RYM reviews. Oh, hey, Travis Scott isn't the worst shit ever. Oh, hey, Cloud Dead isn't hot fucking garbage. I don't know. But
what you should do?
Maybe it still is. I don't know. I did not revisit Cloud Dead yet. But that track, actually, I really enjoyed that song too. And
you know what you should check out? So real quick, check out Cloud Dead, but check out Dose 1's album with Boom Bip called Circle. I don't know if you've checked that out. I don't think you
have that I have a catalog. I think I have it, and I either have listened to it and it didn't leave an impression, or I haven't listened to it. I don't know. If I listened to it, it definitely didn't leave an impression because I can't tell you anything about it. But I've definitely heard of it, and I definitely did at some point download it. But I don't know if I have it currently. But I'll listen to it because that actually had me interested to check out more Dose 1. After this, I will give Cloud Dead another shot. So you've succeeded enough in this project. This album more so than Deep Puddle. So yeah, congratulations.
Well, I'm done. We can end the show.
We'll see if I succeeded on my end on the other half. But
we'll see. But yeah, great album. I also love Black Tea, and then followed by Inspirations Passing, where Black Tea is sort of, apparently it's about him sort of imagining outliving his wife in the future. And I think like she dies.
Really? Holy shit. I didn't pay that close of attention to it. I actually thought of it like, I mean, now that I read the lyrics, it's a little more, it's still very abstract.
Well, I just read the lyrics like a few days ago, so I don't know if you've even seen them. And you can say
I'm reading the lyrics now, and it kind of makes sense. At the very end, what he says makes it kind of ties it together. I thought of it as more like, well, sonically, Black Tea. It kind of sonically sounds like this tricky song, Black Coffee.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was a reference to almost, because it, like I said, it has like that mid-late 90s, like you said, Ilby.
Trip hop.
A little bit trip hop, yeah.
Yep.
So,
yeah, possibly, yeah. But,
obviously, now that I read the lyrics, this was one of the songs I didn't get to focus on as much, but this was also in the part of the album I was really starting to get into it. Like,
yeah. To be honest, I didn't figure that out myself. I was looking up some reviews on Amazon, because it's the only place where people actually bother listening and talking about this album. But so
no one even fucking annotates this shit on Genius. The Mac Miller by the way, once we get to Faces, the annotations on Faces on Genius made me hate the internet.
Yeah.
Oh my god. What?
The Genius, when it comes to like obscure artists, it's annoying because no one has the lyrics. When it comes to mid-level artists, it's pretty cool. And then when it comes to like super, super popular artists, like do not look up any Kanye song. It's like one line that is like 5 words, has like 5 paragraphs explaining it. And it's just
and it's a dick joke or a poop joke.
Yeah, it's like, we get it. Yeah. But yeah, so I love Black Tea. I'm pretty sure it's about his dead wife. And then I think probably Black Tea sort of symbolizes death. And then Inspiration Passing is about his dead mother. And how like she was, the inspiration to him, and she sort of passed away. And appropriately enough, the saxophone is played by his brother, Aaron. So it's sort of
it makes sense that you would have the elegy tracks followed by Pill Hiding, which is the most like confessional track about substance abuse, and then Slow Motion People, which is about like the most like him relating to the world track aside from Jovial Costume, where he's more or less talking about how he relates to society, and then Final Act ties it all together. So really the structurally in a writing sense, as well as sonically too, the album just is like a darker and darker palette as it goes.
Yeah. And
like Jovial Costume is happy, like not happy, but you know what I mean, more upbeat, more up tempo. Obviously, when you read the lyrics, listen to how he delivers it more in a sarcastic sense. So,
yeah, it's interesting. And then the final, Pill Hiding is one of my favorites. It's like stylistically all over the place, but it is sort of about him hiding his pills, like not taking his medication. So, in a way, like the beat and like the way that the delivery matches that, which I just love. But yeah, then the last track, Final Act, I think it's sort of about like the anxiety of performing live, to the point where he's being beaten up by his audience, and then he's like ashamed of like sort of like starting to doubt and question if like the music he's been making, like if he deserves to get beat up. So I don't know if this is like he feels bad for the whole Anticon thing necessarily, but I like that song, and it almost sounds like a sort of a LP Cannibal Ox era beat. But yeah, I tried my best in trying to transcribe some of these songs. Slow Motion People, I couldn't quite make out with everything he was saying. But
you are. So you're the source of these Genius annotations.
Not the annotations, no, just the lyrics.
You're the source of the lyrics. There are no annotations.
Maybe like half the album, or less.
You were saying that when you did say that if I was looking them up on the show that you would be the source of them. I do remember that now. I thought you were joking, but
so I tried my best. Slow Motion People and Opus Ashamed. It was just the vocals were like way too varied in the instrumentals. Not as a bad thing, but as a stylistic choice. So I couldn't really make out.
It's interesting though, because first listen, I enjoyed Deep Puddle way more. Well, not way more, but more. And second listen, and especially talking about it, I enjoyed the Alias album way more. Like it's just, it hits me harder. It's not it's not something I'm gonna be reaching for too often because it's so dark. I mean, the instrumentals though, like I've listened to the instrumental. I listened to the instrumentals twice too, and I'm gonna have that like on standby because I think it's such a good like.
I knew you would love the instrumentals. I know. Yeah. I got the feeling. I was like, these instrumentals are right up Patrick's.
Oh no, for sure. Just the dub elements alone, but they're just stylistically, there's so much variation, but it feels cohesive. That's and just really creative. Sounds like no other hip hop album, more or less. Like not just of its era, but of any era. And yeah, it covers a lot of genres that I'm into, a lot of time periods that I'm into. It really doesn't line, aside from, instrumentally, it doesn't line up with comparison with any other hip hop I can think of necessarily. It really is more of a comparison piece with like Massive Attack or Portishead or Tricky or that sort of thing. But then when you factor in the rapping, I mean, he does rap like L. His content is more like something like Slug or Cage. I think he does the personal stuff better than Cage. It's different than Slug. Again, like I don't know Atmosphere well enough to say that it's better than anything Slug has ever done. And I think that Slug has a way of rapping that is more approachable to people than this is. This isn't trying to be approachable. Like that's the other thing about it is it's deliberately in some places abrasive, not necessarily in a Danny Brown sort of way, although like kind of. Like, I mean, Danny deflects with humor in a way that he doesn't.
Yeah, it's super. I don't know what the word is, but it is.
You know what I mean about like he's still like kind of delving into like that's another artist that does do depression. Like obviously, like Atrocity Exhibition, that's a depression album. Triple X, that's a depression album.
Yeah, but that's like in a sort of a manic, depressive kind of way with sort of like
that's like a bipolar state, and like. Yeah, like it's not a whole album exploring the theme of depression, even though like there are large parts of it that are about depression.
Yeah, but they're both very confessional in their own ways. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Where like, this album is sort of like he's completely wearing his heart on his sleeves and just like sort of bearing it all, which is especially for given this is Anticon, given this is underground, early 2000s hip hop. You're starting to see more and more of these sort of people, like you say, with Atmosphere and stuff, but not as much. Well, I guess he also had Cannibal Ox and Atmosphere, so it was getting more and more popular around this time. But I guess this is
the thing about Canox. We talked about that in the episode, though. Is Canox was like you had the confessional stuff, but it was also like Cap's Bortles verses were freestyle too. Like it was still in the base of battle rapping. And
so it is a different approach. I
mean, it was still dark and depressive, but
but it was still braggadocious.
Again, I think
there's nothing braggadocious
at the time was probably Cage. Maybe it's because it's the one I'm most familiar with, but I feel like he was the one. And then, like, I guess you had. I mean, Dalek had. I think Dalek was 2000 actually, because Filthy Tongues of Gods and Griots. I don't know how you fucking pronounce it. That was 2002. Oh, maybe it was 2002 and then 2004. And Dalek has depressive stuff too. Like,
but it's much less personal. Like there is
he's not really.
It's much more in mood.
That is true. Dialect doesn't really talk about his own life experience nearly as much. Like he'll mention stuff in passing, but it's mostly just like a greater overall societal comment sort of rap.
Yeah, it is much more much more larger image society and
or just like poetry,
political.
Or like poetry, like poetic statement rap.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, and they had way more of a political edge than some.
Correct.
I was gonna say Bluebird is probably similar to this, but then I remembered that half that album is produced by Alias himself, so I guess that's probably why it's similar. I'm not sure if you've heard of him. There's this album called Sloppy Doctor. It's even the same
Sloppy
album
Doctor?
artist.
Wait, Sloppy Doctor?
Yeah, it's the same album artist.
That's like a Kool Keith album.
Is it?
No, it sounds like a Kool Keith album. Like
right, yeah. I think you might enjoy this album.
Heard of Bluebird, no. I haven't.
He has a kind of a soul, but a bit more of a Project Blood sort of chopping sort of flow. But he's really cool. He's friends with Soul. He's collaborated with him.
I'll check it out. I mean, I will try to remember to check it out because I was overall, yeah. My verdict on this was just to kind of tie it together. More positive than I thought it was going to be. I did come in with an open mind. I didn't kitchen this one up, and
thank you very much.
And yeah, like I don't think I'm going to come back to Deep Puddle as much, or if at all. But the Alias project, I'll definitely come back to the instrumentals. And Looking Glass, I will at least give one more full listen, like without interruptions. It's definitely right there alongside the Haslo, in case I don't make it back project, in terms of just and Solace, some rap songs for that very narrow lane of really good dark depressive rap. And Zero and the better Mike stuff as well.
Yep. I'm glad you gave it a fair shot and you gave it up in my listen, because most other people, other than probably you and KP, why everyone else is sort of is very quick.
I listened to 21,000 clown rap albums. I will give anything a fair shot. True. I guess you have quite a open palette to things there, but it's very easy to dismiss. I guess because we're sort of wrapping up Anticon segment, it's very easy to dismiss them, and partly it is their fault, with the advancement in hip hop and the fact that they were purposefully trying to push boundaries, which I personally think they succeed. Take, though. You without a net, whatever, like you risk looking foolish, you risk making an ass out of yourself. I mean,
you do.
Nothing risked, nothing earned, I guess. Fuck it.
Especially that you're mostly white people from not from ghettos, not from harsh upbringing. So, I'm sure quite a few of them I'm pretty sure they were art students. So it is sort of like you already got everything against you going into it. But I think, given the current context of modern, abstract, alternative, experimental hip hop has completely blown up. Like it's completely a normal thing now. Embraced by both people of those circles only, but also outside. So I think, like, if I would to give anyone advice, like, I think it's like fairly normal to go in, like, to the point where it's like sort of tame some of these things. Like I said before, it's not too far off from something like a Elucid or a Billy Woods or even like a Zero or
I think Zero is probably a better comparison than Arm & Hammer. I think Arm & Hammer is a better comparison to the Def Jux stuff we were talking about. I mean, obviously, like,
true
has that like direct connection to Vortal. So
that's a good point. Yeah. So yeah, I guess Anticon, Def Jux is a bit easier to get into, but I'd still recommend people to at least check out these two. I'd recommend if you didn't enjoy Cloudhead, or even if you did, it's a unique album in all of hip hop. Like there are other stuff other than some of those ones, super abstract solo stuff. It doesn't sound like that. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say.
Well, I kept an open mind and enjoyed what you had to offer to me. Let's see what you had to say about what I had to offer to you. Faces by Mac Miller.
Right. I'll give a quick introduction to my sort of relationship with Mac Miller. So I was, I think my introduction to him was probably around 2011 or 2010, where he had a song called Nike's on My Feet, which had a sample from Nas, Nike's on My Feet, which I think the original line was Suede Tim's on my feet, make yourself incomplete. But then for a remix, and I think a promotional thing with Nike, he said, Air Nike's on my feet, make myself incomplete. Anyway, he had that song, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool, because, he's someone around my age, which at the time was, early 20s. But sampling Nas and having sort of a more of a traditional flow and a traditional boom bap beat. So I was digging it quite a bit, and he did also come around that time with the I think we talked before, with the newer sort of school of the Big Crits and the J. Coles and the Danny Browns and the eventually, like, the Shabazz Palaces and the Death Grips and whatnot. but also the Joey Badass, where it was these, younger, and even A$AP Rocky, whereas these younger people in their, very early 20s approaching older stars of hip hop, sort of East Coast, sort of boom bap, but they weren't doing it in a sort of outdated way as some of the middle-aged people. But there's doing sort of a little bit more of a refreshing take on it. Logic to a bit of a lesser extent. So he was in that circle with me, but I sort of fell off with Mac, J. Cole, and Logic. I kind of enjoyed some of their earlier stuff, but sort of didn't check them out. And with Mac Miller and I never really listened to a full project of his other than a few tracks here and there. Mainly because he wasn't necessarily no one was talking crazy about his music. I think, what is it? Not Soundtrack for the Blind. That's a Swans album. Watching movies with the sound off.
Now I'm
watching movies with the sound off.
Rapping over like Michael Gira 20-minute drone shit.
Yeah.
Probably could do. He's rapped over some weird shit. If you go into like Mac Miller, like B-sides and like deep cut shit, he'd rap over pretty much anything. But
yeah. But So I think when that album came out, I maybe listened to maybe a couple songs from that. But that one sort of did get quite a positive reception, but still not that much. So I didn't really feel the rush to check him out. But I was sort of meaning to check out. I think people were saying Faces and Good AM were probably his best mixtape, best album. I still didn't get around to Good AM, but I did check out Faces for this. And yeah, that's about it, honestly, for me, from my relationship with Mac, other than listening to these projects for the show. I don't know, what about you? Because you said you didn't like him at first, did you?
Yeah, I didn't, because basically he came up from the same scene as Wiz Khalifa and out of Pittsburgh, a local-ish scene. And he sounded a lot like Wiz in his earlier stuff. He sounded like kind of like the junior varsity Wiz Khalifa, like the whole we have Wiz Khalifa at home and you get Mac Miller. Sort of thing. At first, he had a song called Donald Trump, which was like back before Donald Trump was the fascist guy, like a cute little reality star type thing. And Donald Trump was all about it until he couldn't make money off it. Then he tried to sue Mac Miller, and then I think he settled that out of court, which was funny, I guess. So he was basically just kind of like this novelty rapper, and then he started seeming more serious about stuff. He put out Blue Slide Park, which was the one that kind of sounded like Wiz Khalifa stuff to me, and I was like, this makes me feel old when I listen to it, and I don't like that. Where it was like he has skill, but he was doing stuff that just didn't seem like it was for me. Then he put out Watching Movies with the Sound Off, which was brain feeder type shit, which I wasn't expecting, and I liked a lot of that album. Although the last track on it is still fucking nauseating to me. It's the worst thing the Clams Casino has ever done. It's probably the worst thing that Mac Miller's ever done. I hate that song. It's like the rap equivalent of like a U2 ballad. It's just awful garbage. But so I was on and off with Mac Miller. Like Good AM was good, but good but bloated. The Divine Feminine was really well done on a musicianship level, but I just can't listen to Mac Miller talk about relationships and fucking for that long. It just got a little... I mean, he's really sincere. I don't think the album was cynical, but it was just not the sort of content I could listen to over and over. But then I thought Swimming was outstanding, and then he died, and then it got really sad. And Circle, I thought his death was fucking tragic. I mean, obviously. And then Circles was just as good as Swimming. So, and then that made me revisit Faces. Faces was something that when it came out, I thought was good. But again, like a lot of his projects, I hate when people say something needs editing because I feel that's just a lazy criticism. But, some shit does just need editing. I just made that
the
criticism.
First track on Deep Puddle Dynamics.
I was going to say, I just literally every track on Deep Puddle Dynamics. Yeah, some shit just goes on.
Not every track.
Pretty much every track could stand to be edited by a minute or two. Cut the shit, cut it down to the best bars from everybody, and no beat has really any right to go on. Like, I mean, they did 3-minute songs, not 5-minute songs in their case. I'm sorry. No,
that was the 2000s.
If you listen to that Secret Museum of Secret, whatever, what the fuck is that thing called? The Secret Museum album with the Kool A.D. and Kool A.D. stuff. You'll understand why I made the comparison, because those songs are like 9 minutes long and they need to be like 5 minutes long. That's why I made the comparison, because they're both good albums where just people are rapping forever, and you just like, you're like, this would be better if you rapped for about half the amount of time.
Right. Anyway, get off it.
Yeah. You don't like. All right. I'm sorry that I hurt your feelings.
No. Look, I'm kidding.
No.
But
okay. I'm sorry.
But it was the 90s.
So anyway, Faces.
Yeah.
But yeah. So this was one that I thought.
So you checked it out after he died.
No. I checked it out initially, and I thought it could use some editing, but I thought it was pretty good.
Okay.
But I've come back to it occasionally. I liked it more every time I checked it out, every couple of years. And then after he died, I came back to it more and more often, and I was like, this might be his classic album. Like, the production on this is really good, really weird. He raps well on every track. There are lots of concepts on here, and it's long, but I don't think there are any whack songs or anything. In retrospect, there is one song, maybe two songs that are not good. But beyond that, I think that the production's fucking remarkable. I think he raps his ass off throughout. There are so many clever lines. I think the way he threads the movie sound clips is beautiful. I think there are like 3 or 4 different sort of genres he's playing with on here. You've got like jazz rap. You have a sort of like ambient brain feedery sort of stuff that he was doing on Watching Movies, kind of pushed a little further. You have little bit more neo soul type of stuff, which one of the tracks I would maybe lose is Colors and Shapes. I like it, but I can see how people would get sick of it because it's 5 minutes him doing neo soul.
Yes,
which is essentially what Divine Feminine was. I was going to say I didn't see you really having time. I thought you went like the other one I'd lose is Insomniac. Insomniac is fine for what it is. I see why you did it. Yes,
yeah, right.
But it doesn't fit. Like, sonically, it doesn't fit. Nothing else on here sounds like that. Nothing in that section of the album really sounds like that. And, like, the Mike Jones one is weird, but it actually works a lot better in context. I mean, it's like, first of all, like, why the fuck? Who? Mike Jones? Like, why did you get him? But, although the funniest thing on this album is, so, you know how there's an Ab-Soul listed feature, but no Ab-Soul? Okay.
Yeah. I was going to say...
You know why that is, right?
No, but I was going to say when I first listened to this album, I was like, wait, did I accidentally hit next or something? Because I was like, I didn't even pay attention to Ab-Soul. His verse was that boring. But then he's just like, he has like an outro or something.
No, he doesn't. He does the ad-libs because he heard the verse and he heard Earl's verse and he was going to record on it. And then he decided he couldn't follow Earl.
Really?
Apparently, That is the story. Like, it might just be the internet lying to me, but I'm pretty sure that's the story. And Mac,
that's not very hip hop. That's not very hip hop. Come on.
He white flagged it. He fucking white flagged it and went home.
Deep Puddle Dynamics wouldn't do that. They would try to cram even more syllables and more words and more concepts about, he wrote a verse about being a candle.
Yeah, what if Ab-Soul was on Anticon?
He's not that far off, is he? Mr. Anunnaki Flow, Mr. Pineal Gland.
Like bars about like lizard pussy over like ambient, 5-minute songs about lizard pussy over like ambient backwards test instrumentals.
Okay, maybe. You're selling me on it. Man, I know Ab-Soul is like a running joke with a lot of people. I've only listened to Control System, and I really like it, and I'm scared to listen to it.
It's a very good album. He didn't do it ever again.
I'm really scared to listen to everything else because everyone says everything else.
You should listen to Do What Thou Wilt. Yeah, we should actually, like, I've been debating what we should do for an April Fool's episode, even though I hate April Fool's as an excuse to do a dumb episode. And I thought we should either do, like, a live group watch of Hamilton, or maybe we should do a live group to Do What Thou Wilt.
Oh, jeez. Which one's shorter?
I don't know what's more historically accurate.
Which one is more of an embarrassment to black people? I'm black, by the way, so I can say that.
You really need to listen to it that well. Oh my god, it has a line about Jesus's penis on Venus, but back to reality, I'm actually Jewish.
Bars. I think I watched Dead End and Fantana review of this. Maybe I think just Dead End, but yeah, I remember they're just quoting lines from it and just trashing it. So that's about how much I want to listen to it. I just watch a review. That's it.
And the best song on there is the Mac Miller song. Actually, no, there are two good songs on that. The very first song is good, and the Mac Miller song is good, and that's it. But yeah, Rick,
first song is called Raw, between brackets backwards.
Yeah, because Raw backwards and all you bastards, because Raw backwards is war.
Really?
Yeah. Did I just blow your mind? Did I just open your third eye?
Yeah, your the predictability bored me.
That's
but
about
anyway.
as clever as it gets.
Okay, so now I believe that he doesn't. He removed his verse because he's scared.
Yeah, he ran away, but Earl kills both his features, like in two different flow. Like New Faces is one of my favorite Earl verses. Period.
I actually prefer the Polo Jeans verse.
Both of them are amazing.
It's a different, like Polo Jeans is a bit more of the kind of the some rap songs ish later sort of.
Well, which one has
zombie?
There's one that's one's more some rap songs. One's literally got a line from "I don't go outside. I don't like you. I don't go outside."
Yeah, I think that's New Faces where it says that. I like both of them, but I just want to quote some lines real quick from Polo Jeans where it says, "Sweaty man, you best had bet your bottom dollar on him with a couple niggas. Wayne sesh like it's a lot of options. 15 on me for soda and swishers. And who's the shit? A bag of chips or a colon decleanser?" And then he says, "I'm so impatient and going dumb as disclosing my fucking home location to total strangers." I was like, oh, okay, that's
I just got when I listened to it today was listen ST with the older initials, Sly Tendencies. That was his name. Yeah,
that's his baby project, eh?
Yeah, that was the Baby Pictures project. Ben rap game tighter than boa constrictors. God damn, just so good.
Yeah, which I just wanted to say at first, because of course, R.I.P. Well, R.I.P. Mac Miller, but also R.I.P. MF Doom, because I was listening to a lot of Doom, and then when I was listening to this album, Faces, I was like, is it just because I've listened to a lot of Doom, or do I pick up a lot of Doom from this? But I was like, wait, obviously, Earl. And I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like Earl had a massive influence on Mac Miller's flow.
Oh, because this is like Mac sounds so much like all of Mac's flow on this is incredibly in depth. It's like he listened to Doris 1,000 times before he made it.
There's a lot of like that sort of MF Doom rhyming every word in bar to bar sort of flow, and he also does the famous MF Doom pause that I always talk about, where which track was it in particular? I think it's Friends. He does it, and I can't remember what the other one is, where he does like that da 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 pause da 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 da.
Is it on Danger Doom?
Well, MF Doom, he was doing it all the time, but he did it.
I'm trying to think of what track you're doing, like where it's 1-to-1, because he does it on Friends, obviously.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I meant Mac Miller does it on the track. Is it the third track, Friends?
Oh no, I thought you were talking about Doom, like Doom's.
Yeah,
but
I
know what you mean now, but I thought you were talking about Deep Fried. Never mind. I'm sorry. I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about now. But no, Mac Miller does do Doom shit on this album for sure.
Yeah. I picked it up, which is obviously from I'm sure he enjoys Doom himself, like every other rapper.
No, the way you're talking about how like the way you like that style of just term paper rap or whatever, that's just a style of like it just sounds good to you. The Doom style of rap, the Earl style of rap that Mac does on this album, that just sounds good to me. Just whatever the fuck he's rapping.
Same.
Like I just could listen to this all goddamn day. And regardless of what he's rapping. But what he's rapping about on this, I think, is I think the content of it is really, really good. I think lyrically, you don't really know his discography that well. I mean, I haven't listened to everything, but I've listened to a good deal of it, and I don't think he's ever been better, balance wise, and he's addressing depression that Alias addressed depression, but in a completely different sort of way, rap wise, and sonically too. The instrumentals he chooses to rap over are also experimental, but the experiments are different.
Yeah, and the other thing is they both explore depression, but from almost the other sides of the coin, where Alias is super introverted raps. He talks a lot about self-doubt. He talks a lot about, being, sitting on the side of the bus and not saying hi to the other guys. Whereas Mac Miller, and I will say, I liked this album, but I didn't love it. One is the length. It's an hour and a half.
Yeah, correct.
The first half is way stronger than the second half for me, instrumentally mostly. The other thing I would say is that I like how pretty much almost every track has there's a concept or there's a topic and he runs with it. It's not just rapping for the sake of rapping, and it's not just flossing or flexing or whatever, although he does have a couple and it is pretty good. But I will say this is a bit hard to address, but in the way that Alias approaches how depression affects him from an introvert's perspective, Mac Miller to me does it from sort of like an extrovert, where he's a person who has access. He's famous, he's rich, he has access to mansions, women, drugs, parties, and which is a big theme of it. But it's almost like the rich, the rich and famous sort of lifestyle is sort of almost like he's crumbling underneath it. So yeah, it is sort of interesting other side of the coin, but I do understand his death was tragic and his life he definitely suffered from at least depression, if not something else. With this album, I feel like it's not super relatable to me personally, because there is a lot of tracks where it's about how his lifestyle is sort of consuming him, but he is sort of bragging in some way, but not necessarily. One track, I forgot what it's called. I think it's Wedding, which I love the instrumental, but the lyrics are sort of, he's talking about how he feels bad about cheating too much, where it's I understand it's concern for someone of his tax bracket and lifestyle, but it's sort of yeah, you know what I mean?
Humble braggy song. Wedding is my least favorite song lyrically, because my hardest pill to swallow with Mac lyrically is when he talks about women, because it's very sincere and I sincerely can't really relate to, I fuck too much. Damn. It's hard for me to stop fucking so much.
I'm sorry, girl.
I fuck so much.
Yeah, I'm sorry, girl. Yeah, you're so good to me. How can I keep you? But I still want to do this. But yeah, and I don't want to. I don't want to badmouth, the guy, because he was clearly.
We're not shitting on a dead guy, and he by all accounts was a wonderful dude, and artist wise, lyrically, in terms of how he expresses his depression elsewhere and stuff that I can relate to, substance issues and issues of feeling isolated, and even though you're being extroverted, you still feel alone. I can relate to all of that, and I think he expresses it very well, even in tracks where he's bragging. They'll still have elements to them that give context that make the brags they're not just brags in a lot of cases. So songs Friends is an entire exploration of that concept, more or less.
Yeah,
and
love that. Yeah, great song.
And there are only a few songs on here I think are mostly just him talking shit, and he's really great. It Just Doesn't Matter. That's pretty much just him talking shit Earl style. Fucking wonderful. Even though it's got that, you think it's going to be morbid because it has the Bill Murray meatball sound clip, which is put to kind of a I don't want to say chilling effect, but it's kind of an unsettling way that he does it, where he echoes the end of it, and the beat is pretty dark. But I just really love the way he uses the movie sound clips in this too. Like it really cultivates a really cool atmosphere.
Yeah,
Very Mad Lib.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, MF2, but more Mad Lib. You can tell his influences. You can tell, but they're not copying whatsoever. Even like big influence of Earl on his flow, but he's not rapping about the same stuff Earl is rapping at whatsoever. And that's the thing I sort of struggle with, where it's like like I said, the first half is stronger than the second, but when I look at the track, like he is talking about something in each one, which, like, if someone was telling me what would you get rid of, I could name a bunch of tracks, but it's mainly because the instrumentals, well, I think for someone similar to Alias, for someone like rapping this much and this well, the fact that the instrumentals can, are this good is quite a feat. Like, he's a double threat.
Yeah.
But to me, the songs that I would take off from the second half, it's not because the instrumentals are bad. It's just because they're okay, like they're serviceable. But the other instrumentals, like the first three, and then Therapy, Paula Jeans, Wedding, and San Francisco, are so good in comparison that it's sort of like, well,
it kind of definitely peaks in the second half with the Thundercat interlude into San Francisco. And then it detours. You have Colors and Shapes, which wanders around for 5 minutes doing a neo soul thing. Then Insomniac, which has nothing to do with the rest of the tape. And then
I still like Insomniac.
I like it, but it doesn't fit. I mean, it's cool, but and the thing is, when you put this, well, it's a little late to be having a Rick Ross song on every, like, this isn't 2012 or 2010, but it was cool. Like, I didn't mind it. I liked it less each time. Like, it's something that I didn't like it at all the first time I heard it. I thought, then I came around to it. Now I'm just kind of neutral on it, I guess, where I'm like, it's cool, but it doesn't. If you had to ask me what song I would lose, I'd lose that over Colors and Shapes, because Colors and Shapes at least fits sonically, whereas Insomniac might be a better song, but it doesn't sound like anything else on there. There's no real reason for it to be on there.
Yeah. I guess I'm sort of looking at it individually. Colors and Shapes, I can
see that. Like, he can't really sing that well.
Although with Insomniac, I actually preferred Rick Ross on that track than I did Mac Miller. Just because probably it fit better. So like,
it's probably Mac's worst rapping on the. It's still not bad rapping, but I think he raps much better because he dumbs it down on that song. Like, I don't know if he's trying to rap like Rick Ross, or he's definitely using a different, not as like interesting flow on that song.
Yeah, because there is another trap beat, which I can't remember which track it was. I have it written down somewhere, where it is I think it's Therapy, where it's a trap beat.
Well, Therapy's got the horns on it. Therapy's different, and Therapy's way better.
Yeah, I love that song. Yeah, Therapy. It's a jazzy sort of trap beat, but it's still got this trap hi hats and stuff.
I wouldn't.
But he's got like that.
Many there are a few tracks on here that I would say have like a Manny Fresh quality to them with the horns. Like, when you say trap, you're talking old school trap, I would say, with that shit. Like, the Insomniac beat was like more like contemporary trap type shit.
Yeah, Insomniac is more like it's like a Rick Ross song, like Lex Luger, Rick Ross track. Whereas,
although it was Big Germ that did that, Germ's done good shit, and the beat's cool. Like, again, it's a good song. It just doesn't fit. Like,
yeah, but Therapy, I wouldn't say it's old. It's more of a new sort of twist on, like, it's like sort of like jazzy and trap at the same time. But I really like Mac Miller on that. Like, he has like that sort of staccato, sort of like almost sort of triplet flow that really it's really like a fun sort of bouncy flow that really fits that track real well. I thought he personally did better on that than Insomniac, but I feel like Rick Ross. Yeah, I see what you mean. Like, you can take Insomniac out and just make it a Rick Ross featuring Mac Miller song, possibly. But yeah, San Francisco is probably my favorite song. I might be stretching here, but I felt like that was like a Scallops Hotel sort of influence. Like first thing I thought of when I listened to that song.
I can hear it now that you say that. Now I remember you saying something about, that beat's nuts. I don't know if that's my favorite beat on here. It's close though. Like it's really close. I love the fucking yes. I'm trying to think of another beat that I like that much. I mean, I like the first two beats. I love the first three actually. I really love the beat on the Kool A.D song. Friends has an amazing beat, and the way it like expands is really cool. And like I love the jazzy little drums on that stuff on that. So I like that.
Yeah.
I think Diablo is really cool too.
Right. Yeah.
Here We Go has some of it, like the Did It All Without a Drake feature, Did It All Without a Jay feature part on that, I think is one of the most like triumphant parts of like, that's one of the first Mac lines I thought was really, even back when I first heard this, and I wouldn't say meh on it, but I was more like, it's cool, but I don't think it's that like a classic or anything. That stuck with me. I'm like, okay, that's like a memorable line.
That sort of reminded me of it reminded me of J. Cole, because what did he say, that double platinum, no features or something like that. Not necessarily in a bad way.
Okay,
I feel like Drake.
Be a compliment or an insult? Because I think on this podcast it's an insult.
No, I feel like J. Cole. I haven't given him the fair time of day, but I don't think he's horrible. I think he's just mediocre. But I'll be honest. That
J. Cole is the Applebee's of rap. Do you have Applebee's wherever you live? Yeah. J. Cole
nah, we don't know what that is. Yeah. But I do feel like there is a little bit of J. Cole influence on Mac, a little bit maybe.
I'm sure that's another thing about Mac is that he was always taking something, not biting, but taking something from everyone he collaborated with. That was something everybody said about him when he died, was that he was such a, wanted to always collaborate with people, was always just very like a giving creative spirit in that way. So,
yeah, from what I understand, like everyone only had positive stuff to say about him. Yeah, he seemed like a really genuine guy, and it makes.
Yeah, but stylistically, he's always trying to learn new instruments and shit, and like do sessions and expand creatively from whoever he was working with to try and learn from them. And I think you get that on here too. Like he's got like people that, I mean, he mostly stays within a circle. You have the two Earl features. You have Thundercat's kind of an extension of the Earl Flying Lotus scene. You have stuff like, I mean, the Mike Jones thing's probably the weirdest thing on here. I like it. Like, I didn't like it at first. I just didn't know what to make of it, but I like it.
Yeah, I think it's okay. I just think it's a bit, I mean, it is sort of like a novelty now that, like, Mike Jones is still repeating lines from a 2005 song. And, like, that was his thing. What else do you
expect Mike Jones to do? You don't go to a Gallagher show and expect him to not smash a melon.
It is a melon smashing sort of situation with him, I guess. But yeah, I don't know that maybe it is only
a Gallagher show and not expect him to do 20 minutes of racist material about Mexicans.
Wait, did he do that?
Oh, look up Gallagher. Gallagher's a massive racist. Gallagher is insane. Dude, Gallagher did this interview with Mark Maron. He was the first person to walk out on Mark Maron's podcast.
Wow.
Yeah,
right.
It's hilarious. You should listen to at least the last 5 minutes of it. He's a truly crazy person.
Right. No, the only thing I know about Gallagher is the Dave Chappelle skit.
Yeah,
and he's Smash Watermelon and Dave Chappelle skit. That's it. All right.
But but like the whole thing about like you get Mike Jones, he's going to repeat the same. Like that's what he's going to do. Like
yeah, but I guess if in an hour and 30-minute album, to me that's like an obvious like.
I guess what you're saying is, like you have that whole. Well, I mean, I guess that's why I said Lose Insomniac too. You have San Francisco, and then how do you feel about Rain? I think Rain is incredible. Like you never hear Vince Staples over like a neo soul sort of thing, and it works really well.
That's a nice one. I think I thought it was okay.
Like it's almost like a Most Def sort of like mid 2000s or like a Black Star sort of beat. I thought.
I can't remember off the top of my head without playing it, but I remember thinking it was kind of okay, and that the Vince Staple verse didn't really stick out to me. And I think there was like some singing, the hooks that I just have a personal allergy when it comes to rappers singing.
Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah, if I haven't said it a million times already.
I'm gonna get you a Max B solo album.
No, Max B does he sing a lot?
You don't know. I'll explain Max B to you sometimes. Well, he's like a rap. You know who Max B is, right?
I only know of Max B because literally every single rapper shouts out Free Max B. Even Das Racist, funny enough.
I mean, when they love Dipset, of course, they would shout out Free Max B. Like you said, you watched the Broken Equipment stuff. He's in like the later ones of the Dipset stuff. He's a rap. He like popularized rappers singing. Like he would sing, but he would sing in this like tough, like yelling way. Like he's awesome. He's hilarious. He can't sing. You would hate it. I don't know if you would love it or hate it. He's like yell singing.
Yeah,
I think you would hate it. I think you would probably really not like it.
I did tell Wyatt to check out the King of Hearts album by Kamuteo, which is apparently nuts, but he's singing all over it, but he's not really rapping.
Oh yeah, don't people hate that album?
Well, I think people hated it, but I think it's sort of because of the Kid Cudi. It was influenced by it. A lot of people are sort of revisiting it and saying it's actually really good. Like people are making comparisons to like Yves Tumor, I don't know how to say that, and Young Thug, and
no one knows how to say that except for Caleb, because I still have not listened to the Yves Tumor album, by the way. I guess that's like the running thing on this podcast. I think I've said that like 7 times now.
I haven't listened to it either, but yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of people making comparisons to that. So it's I haven't given it a fair listen yet, but a lot of people say it's sort of like a needs re-evaluating sort of album. And it looks like the rating has sort of been going up. But anyway, that's a rapper singing album that I might eventually check out. But yeah. So overall, I did like Faces, but the length and the second half, and to be honest, Mac Miller, I like his rapping. He has a variety in flow. He has topics that he brings up and he sticks to them. But to be honest, sometimes I kind of tune him out. And I've sort of... It's strange. Like, I'm not sure what it is. I'm not sure if it's his voice or something. Like, it's a bit too maybe boyish and youngish.
I think he might get too in the pocket, and like he thinks too in the pocket, and I think some people think he's too juvenile. Or I think Nodima compared his voice to like something about Droopy Dog, which was mean as fuck in like 2012.
I wouldn't go that far.
A guy that we both like. But
yeah, from what I understand, he was much worse on his previous stuff, like Blue Slide Park and
he got it. But I understand what you're saying. It's still kind of juvenile. But honestly, I'm looking at the track list, and in terms of, I see where it loses you, because you could really like. I mean, I guess you didn't care for Rain either because of the singing, but so I guess we can spare Rain, but like. You could skip from San Francisco to Apparition, and you're losing a good 15, 20 minutes there, I think. And you probably have an album that would be a lot more compact and digestible. So I get that, but I think that those tracks all, even Insomniac in a way, add character, because it's a good song, and it shows the side of his personality. So, I mean, if you're going to make it this long, it's variety. If you're going to be this long anyway, fuck it, throw it in.
And I do like one of the ones that's a bit more conflicting is Thumbelina from the Block. I thought it was a really interesting beat. I love that that aggressive sort of like bit crushed Beastie Boys vocal sample. Mm-hmm. It was like comedian on the block. I love that. But then towards the end he starts singing and I'm like, come on, this is almost gonna bring up the second half again to like a high. But
the fucking Bit Crush is a good way to put it. I wouldn't have thought of how to put it. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Gold Watch by Lupe Fiasco, one of my favorite songs. That people find that beat annoying as fuck, but I love that song.
Man, that real quick, that album is the Cool is really good. Then I feel like it's, even though it's rated
Diction was shitting
high
last night. I don't know if you saw in the chat. Diction was shitting all over it, but
even though it's rated high, I still think it's underrated.
There are certain parts of that album that I love, and certain parts of that album I really don't like. I'm all over the place with that album. Yeah, I would say that I love, I fucking love most of the, I love Superstar, I love Paris Tokyo, I love Gold Watch. I love Spiders. I love the Uncle Beat, whatever the song is. Hello Goodbye. I like that.
Oh yeah.
I forget about Streets on Fire. I think I like Streets on Fire a lot, and Little Weapon. But then there's the stuff, and Hip Hop Saved My Life, of course.
Yep.
But then like the food pun song, I don't like. I don't like the Die. I think the Linkin Park beat song or whatever is fucking terrible. Intruder Alert. That's really, I think that song sucks. Oh, Go Go Gadget Flow is really good too, of course.
Did you like Dumb It Down?
Depends. That's like I go back and forth on that so much, dude. Like first of all, the beat is, I love the beat. I always love the beat, but it's like sometimes I like it, and sometimes I think it's super fucking obnoxious.
Yeah, yeah, exactly the same as me. Yeah, and like, yeah, I love your response. You're like, depends. That's exactly what I was thinking. Like sometimes I love that song, other times I'm like, but I don't know. I feel like the Cool is just as good as Food is Liquor, like Food and Liquor. Actually, wait, no, I read it higher. I think it's probably a little bit better.
I think Food and Liquor better. I like Tetsuo and Youth better than both. I probably like Drogas Wave better than both too, even though it's too long. Because the last couple of songs on Drogas Wave are better than anything on either album.
Right. I really wanted to like Tetsuo Youth. Like the first.
You don't like Tetsuo and Youth?
The first third I love.
Smack the shit
the first third I love. The first third I love, but then some of the later tracks, I don't know, it just doesn't stick to me. I was listening to it a few times, but Dots and Lines is wow. Dots and Lines, I could do a whole show
about Dots and Lines
songs.
Better than Mural? I mean, they're both like perfect songs, but you like
everyone loves Mural. I love Mural, but Dots and Lines is incredible. But anyway, I was reading through the Genius annotations for that. I gotta say, Lupe Fiasco Genius annotations rank up there with some of the best, not some of the worst. You would expect it.
Lupe fans get a bad rap, but like I've actually like they're the ones that are actually still around. I think if you're devoted enough to be a Lupe Fiasco fan in 2021, you're probably still like you're probably not a complete asshole. So yeah, the ones I've dealt with are actually really cool and know their shit. So
yeah, no, there is like a Lupe. Like you could say what you want about Anticon, Anticon, whatever. But Lupe, like I would put my hand on my heart and say like he is deep in terms of like how deep his references cut and his insane level of wordplay that goes into the verses, that goes into the hook, that goes into the title of the track, that goes into like the bloody album art. He's like the ultimate like nerd hip hop fan.
The one that really blew my mind with him was Enemy of the State, like breaking all of that shit down, and that's a mixtape, but it was like the title of the mixtape, the beats he chose, every single fucking line on it means like every single line on that has two fucking meanings, and the beats have a reason he chose them, and I remember explaining that to my wife and she rolled her eyes and she's like, that seems like a lot of work.
Yeah, people immediately think of like people immediately
like this is how I sound to like normal people.
People immediately think of like, oh, that sounds like Tool or something, or sounds like some boring nerd thing, or that sounds like a metalcore technical death metal album where you have to like, oh no, you have to read this and you have to read that, and you hate to sound like that guy. But
why I think Enemy of the State is so perfect is that if you don't know any of that shit, I think it still sounds cool. Like it's just him rapping really well.
Yeah, that's
the beats and
that's the important thing.
And a Radiohead song at the start, which explains all of it. Actually, I don't think I'm best. I just think I'm better than everyone. Yeah, no, that is like so.
This is on my list. I haven't listened to this yet. This is on my list right now.
You haven't listened to? Okay, well, that's what you literally. You need to listen to that immediately after this episode. Like,
right?
Yes.
Okay, I'll check it out.
I'm very angry that you have not listened to that, but yeah. So Mac Miller Faces. I
want to say real quick. I also did just to tie back. I did catch. I can't name of songs in particular, but I did catch a little bit of a Lupe influence too on this album.
I wouldn't be surprised. They worked together once. Have you heard All City Chess Club on Beeman remix?
No, but
everyone in the world on it has B.O.B. Charles Hamilton.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've heard of it, but I've not listened to it. I always see it like oh, Lupe was in this group. I'm like, the hell?
Yeah.
But it's only like one song or something, is it? On like a B.O.B. mixtape. I was like, okay, whatever. Yeah, I'm beaming with this.
Exact roster of all.
Yeah. But yeah. Is there much else to say about Faces?
The roster of All City Chess Club was Lupe Fiasco, Pharrell Williams, Asher Roth, B.O.B., Chuck English, Sir Michael Rocks, Charles Hamilton, Blue, Diggy, and J. Cole.
Wow.
They made one fucking song.
Wait, Diggy?
Diggy, I believe that's Russell
Simmons or Reverend Run's son.
Son of Rev Run. Oh,
that was
God,
another...
Diggy's album art. Yeah, you got to look up Diggy's album art of Unexpected Arrival. Oh, holy shit.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, you gotta see this shit. It's great.
Diggy was another guy.
A lot of choices. I can't say that I was ever on the Diggy train. I was never on the Diggy bus. This album art is tremendous. I love the font he chose. He made a lot of really good artistic choices on this album cover.
Jeez, but no, he was one of those other guys that came out with, I can't remember what the name of the song is, but also had like an old school sort of sample or throwback flow or something. And is also like super young. And I was like, oh, okay, this is refreshing. And then he released some other stuff, and I was like, Jesus, this is the absolute worst.
Having, like a song. It's weird that you lump all these guys together, but it's like, yeah, I don't like. I guess Matt, like, so J. Cole. Did J. Cole have like a? I'm trying to remember what J. Cole's breakout. Like, I know J. Cole because I was on the internet and he got hyped, but I don't remember what J. Cole's like breakout song was to people because he had a bunch of failed singles, and then it was new J. Cole. Like he had Workout. But that song was like not. I remember that song not being popular. Like that was a joke. Like he put all this money into the song and it stopped, and no one cared. And then he had. I thought it was Who Dat. That was my introduction. Who Dat.
Oh yeah,
Who Dat. Oh yeah, Who Dat. That was a popular song. So.
Yeah, and that's why I was like, oh yeah, this guy's like a. And people were saying like, oh, he's the next Nas and stuff like that. It's like, come on.
Well, and then he had a song with Nas where he talked about how he let Nas down, which is like the least rap thing I've ever heard. I'm going to make a song about how I let another rapper down.
I understand breaking stereotypes and breaking the mold and all that sort of stuff and challenging norms of masculinity or whatever. But yeah, come on. That's some bitch shit. That's some hoe shit. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. Anything else to say about
not really much else, I guess, on Faces, except for I just think it's really incredibly front to back, well wrapped album. I think structurally, the way he puts like Wedding back to back with Funeral, Diablo back to back with Ave Maria next to that, the religious imagery throughout too. Like he's constantly, comparing himself to a devil, like, and all the talk of the afterlife. I mean, obviously, death and suicide are always on his mind. He's talked about how he was out of his head when he made this album. It's obvious. There are more references to cocaine on this than on like fucking 70s Saturday Night Live. So, I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that he has all the Bill Murray sound clips. Like, it's very, I mean, I think that's also probably the reason that it rambles so much and has, like, the lack of editing was, lots of fucking cocaine and, every other drug. But I think cocaine being mentioned so much is only people on cocaine want to talk about cocaine so much.
Yeah, it is. Yes, I guess that's where, I guess sort of the unrelatability, but like I always say, like, I'm down with any concept. It's all about the execution.
Correct.
And the concept is like, it is conceptual, and
it probably has like my favorite, I would say, non-Cool Kids Mikey Rock's song on What Do You Do? I think like outside of Cool Kids, I have no use for Mikey Rocks, although I'm told his last solo is really good by Viz. But I really like that song.
I would say check out this. Have you listened to Lost Boys?
Nah, doesn't ring a bell.
Okay, but it's Sir Michael Rocks featuring Mac Miller and what's the gold tooth guy?
Wiki?
No, the other, the guy who was really hot for like a year or less.
Trinidad James? I don't know.
Trinidad James.
Oh.
Yeah, there's a song called Lost Boys.
That's a weird mix. Okay, I'll check it out.
He actually does all right. Like, it is minimal sort of flow, but he actually does all right. But the song,
I never pictured you recommending me a Trinidad James song on this podcast.
wow, it's produced by Mac Miller. That's an incredible beat. It has
Mac Miller's a great producer, which I guess
he is.
Good transition to the last thing to talk about, because unfortunately I do have to be out of here in 20 minutes.
All right. Yep.
So yeah, real quick, the Larry Fisherman beat tapes, Run On Sentences, volumes 1 and 2.
Yeah.
These were just little side projects he did, and I think volume 2 is some of the best stuff he's ever done. Volume 1's a little. Well, what did you think? Volume 1's good. Volume 2 is great. That's how I see it.
I thought they were possibly about the same. But I thought they were decent. But
you weren't really a fan of either?
Not a huge fan, but I did find it interesting. I felt maybe like Volume 1 was a bit more like hip-hop that sort of was missing a rapper, but it did have a lot of vocal samples. But I did catch like a little bit of a Clams Casino, a little bit of the DJ Shadow kind of boom bit beats. I like the use of like field recordings and nature recordings, but I thought there was a bit maybe too many vocal snippets here and there. And the last track, I think Avocado sort of perked my ears up, possibly because he had rapping on it.
Yeah, not very good rap.
I don't know. I liked it. It was definitely like a straight up Earl, but it went on for way too.
That's what I meant. Like
7 minutes.
Like, I was gonna say like it's not bad rapping, but it's just like it goes on forever. That's
yeah. But then the second Run On Sentences too, I thought it was maybe I probably like that one a little bit better. I like the songs Yo and Atom Bomb. It's interestingly sounded like the more abstract bass side of stuff like Surf Roderick and Dakim.
Yeah,
sort of stuff.
Probably why I
really
liked it more.
Yeah, which I could definitely see why this was up your alley.
I think Volume 1 was more indebted to, like, I think the use of the vocal samples was way more Mad Libby, and I think Volume 2 was way more up like the Surf Roderick, Raz G sort of sound. Like, I think that's what he was going for. It's a lot more formless. It's just spacier. Which I was really surprised. Volume 2 doesn't, like, Volume 1 is definitely, like you said, it's like beats in search of a rapper sort of thing. Like, you could see that maybe he made those to rap over and was like, nah, I'm actually just going to put this out there, maybe throw some vocal samples on it, call it a beat tape. Volume 2 feels like it was deliberately constructed as a beat tape.
Which the songs are, between 1 and 2 minutes in length, most of it. Whereas the first one, they has like, a 5-minute song, a 6-minute song, a 4-minute song, it's a 7-minute song. It's like, it should be trimmed down a bit. But I was pretty interested in the more abstract side of beat making of those leaving record sort of dudes, which I guess maybe that is kind of makes sense because that is sort of the next logical step from Flying Lotus type of guys with the glitch hop beats. But overall, so go on.
No, I was just going to say that he just had such diverse interests. Like, he put out a fucking lounge jazz album as, like, I forget.
Lovestein or something?
Yeah, Larry Lovestein. And he put out, like, acoustic songs, too. Like, you probably hate them. Like, and he put out, like, he would do, like, he probably would have put out something on Leaving. And he also, like, Good AM had, like, straight up pop and trap on it. And, Divine Feminine was neo-soul. And Swimming was different, though. Swimming was like a hybrid style. Like, he was just very musically curious and always evolving.
Yeah, from what I understand.
The interesting to me about Faces was that it showed all of his faces. Like, I think that's why he put that in the title. Like, he was trying to show, like, make a statement that he was showing every side of himself. And something I thought of, I put this in the log, was that it was maybe a cinematic reference. I don't know if he meant this because it's also the title of a John Cassavetes film, which is about like people being ugly, and there's like ugly in relationships and shit. And I don't know if that was something he was alluding to. I don't want to presume on that, but there's a lot of movie clips in there. Like, there's not any clips from Cassavetes, but it seems like something he might have heard of and just thrown that in there. So
possibly.
So I don't want to presume on that one. But yeah, his musical, like, that's why I wanted to tie it together with Anticon. Is it just felt like, rappers who get tied with, or, with a stereotype or a stigma, and people don't listen to them, and because they feel like they're a certain thing based upon what they've heard. But if you actually look deeper, there's more to see there.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And it is sort of like Big Day, but sort of pigeonholed in a way. Both being white and seen as corny in different ways, different circles. But yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of, I guess.
Do you want to talk about the 3 songs real quick? Or?
Oh yeah, just really quick. There were 3 little singles that Larry Fisherman did with 3 very different rappers: Combat Machine, Your Old Droog, and Michael Christmas. I don't know if these were ever just supposed to be one-offs or for a larger project. I think they were just supposed to be one-offs because they happened well before he died. What was your favorite of these? I want to guess.
Probably. First of all, I really liked all 3. Droog is probably my favorite one.
Yeah, I was gonna say Droog. Droog's got. Yeah, I love that fucking song. I actually have it at 5. I love the piano on that, and it's just Droog's fucking on point the entire time.
Yeah, man, this guy's voice, I've said it a million times before, his voice is literally born to rap. Like, his voice is the huskiness of it, like his accent, just everything about his voice is like, he was made to rap. And his wordplay, like, I feel like he's probably the only one who sort of like does like a little bit of a fish, because I know it's part of Go Fish 1, 2, 3. He does a little bit of themes with like the fish and scales, like drug scales, where it says, don't believe that loser's tale in music class. Anytime he used his scale, playing arpeggio, probably solved a little rage, but no blow.
I didn't even notice that shit. Man. He does that shit. He always does that. He always throws in like little fucking clever ass references.
Yeah. It's like a bit of Wu-Tang influence, but yeah, and probably like mixed with like Doom or like Black Thought, of course.
I think he really does listen to lots of classical music. He mentions that on Dump Yacht about like fucking like he'd rather go see a symphony orchestra, and he has like a few classical composer name drops on there too. Like, I think he really listens to a lot of classical music.
Yeah.
He's like the most grumpy old man rapper ever. Like, that's why he's always just hitting people on Twitter and like pissing them off.
Yeah, he's such an old man in a young man's body. But
I still for his grandma. For fucking Margaret Thatcher.
Yeah, and so that was probably my favorite. But I probably liked the Conway one the least, but I still liked it. But I liked the Michael
Christmas one the least because it felt like it was just one. It was twice as long as it needed to be.
Yeah, but I thought,
because the other ones were just like right to the point. The Michael Christmas one just repeated itself. But
that's probably my least favorite. So that's probably my least favorite of the beat. I still liked it. It's a nice, fun beat. But oh man, that he had some really funny bars. Like, it did remind me of That's Racist. Name change, don't make the lame change. I'll make the game change. Life to 2K change. And then he says, that's not cute, Rudy to booty. You're living alternate lives. I'm giving you multiple tries. I'm blowing up to the sky like trying to get multiple wives. I was like, oh, God. He's talking about suicide bombing.
I fucking heard the Michael Christmas out, like his debut album once, and I was like, this is really good. And I never listened to it again. I need to listen to it again because I remember it being like really funny and being really good. And I don't think he ever did much beyond that. But
I've heard of him, but I've not listened to him. I know he did an album with Prefuse 73 of all people, which is completely random.
Really, somebody like, first of all, with that style that you would expect to work, or that Prefuse or Prefuse works with like anyone.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how you fucking pronounce it. You don't need to correct me.
I'm not sure. Yeah. I have no idea either. I think you were right, but that's just an odd selection. But I still like the Conway one, but it was very nice, straight, no BS, cutthroat, gangster rap sort of stuff, and I like the ethereal beat. So it gives like a nice contrast between that. But I'm not a huge Griselda fan. Where it just seems like they put out so much stuff that like none of their verses are like essential. Whereas like you go back, rewind, replay.
But that doesn't surprise me. Like, you don't like prolific artists, and you don't really like the going around selling coke shoot you rap. So.
Well, I do. I do enjoy a fair share of gangster rap, but it's sort of like, all right, what else are you bringing to it? And
I mean, I
They
think all
don't-
three bring something different to it. Like Conway, Westside, and Benny all have. Like, I mean, there are more people in Griselda than that at this point, but
Yeah. But it is with these 3 tracks, it is still like great showcase of not only Mac's beatsmith skills, but also like tailoring beats to
yeah,
3
his versatility. That's kind of like what's great.
Yeah.
Again, more of his sides of him, his faces, his versatility.
Yep.
So,
Yep, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, that's about it, I think.
so yeah, I just like basically kind of wanted to bring this up to just implore you guys to look closer at some stuff you might not have previously. And that's kind of like, because there was a comment on a recent episode where it was like the only podcast where you'll get like praise for Ka and Playboy Cardi. And it's like, yeah. Only podcast where you'll get back-to-back appraisals of Carly Rae Jepsen and DJ Screw. Like, we just want you to listen to what we fucking like. And hope you enjoy it too. Sphinx, always good to have you on. We'll have you on like 15 more times. You, Wyatt, and Infinity are going to lather about clipping for 6 hours or some shit. I'm sure it'll be great. I probably won't listen to that episode. We are living off borrowed time. Our outro music is Stagnated Pace by Can Kick. See you next time.
It ain't gonna never stop. 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 Salam.
Time will tell. Time is yet to be conquered by man. But when the time is right, perhaps the greatest revelation of all time will dawn upon us.